Welcome to the Etan Ilfeld podcast, where we explore transformative ideas with visionary thinkers. Today, I'm honored to host Dr. Tony Nader, a globally recognized Vedic scholar, Harvard-trained medical doctor, and the successor to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi as the leader of the Transcendental Meditation movement, also known as TM. Dr. Nader joins us to discuss his new book, Consciousness is All There Is, which blends ancient wisdom with modern science, offering practical insights into how we can transcend surface-level experiences and connect with deeper states of consciousness. In this episode, we also explore the intricate connections between the universe, the human experience, and what does it mean to be intelligent and conscious. We also learn about meditation and self-awareness and how to improve our lives. Dr. Nader is very good at articulating complicated ideas, and I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. So let's get started. Okay, well, first I want to say it's such an honor and a pleasure to have Dr. Nader here with us. Tony, how are you doing today?
Fine, thank you, Etan. It's great to be with you.
I want to congratulate you on your upcoming book. Those who are only listening on audio, they can't see it. Those who are going to watch on YouTube will see I'm holding your upcoming book, Consciousness is All There Is, and I've made lots of notes. I mean, it's a fantastic book with so much wisdom. It talks about everything from free will to good versus evil to how we can enjoy life more. And what does it mean to live a good life? And and it's I guess in many ways you could say that it kind of encompasses everything that you've worked on to some extent, right?
Exactly. It's been my life work to search for these big questions, and happy to have found a solution and to share it with everyone.
Cool. Well, basically, let's get into it. I mean, one of the things that that you highlight from the get-go is the idea that actually everything is connected. We're all part of this greater consciousness. You talk about the idea that basically the universe creates the physical world, but the universe itself is some sort of consciousness, a higher state of consciousness that basically binds us all together. Could you perhaps explain that?
Yeah, the best way to really look at it is from a metaphor or an analogy. And imagine there is an ocean, a very big ocean that's limitless, and that ocean has different layers of activity, which means actually waves or vibrations, excitations. And then you have waves on the surface of the ocean. So consciousness is like that. Consciousness is a field like an ocean, or if you want to look at it from a physics perspective, say an electromagnetic field, although it's not an electromagnetic field, it's beyond that. But as an example, there is an electromagnetic field that permeates everything and connects everything. And we are creating these waves within that field. So we have an electromagnetic field, we have a gravitational field, we create also gravitational changes in the field. And so the field is all like a tissue, if you like, a sheet, let's say, that has wrinkles in it or different aspects to it. The ocean analogy is really a good one. And we are all like these waves on that ocean. And deeply within, we are all connected because the ocean doesn't differentiate one wave from the other, although it does. You can look at it like that. But all the waves are interconnected. So in the simplest possible way, we say that consciousness is a field. All that manifests is an expression of dynamics within consciousness. And those dynamics allow us to be conscious in different ways. And these different ways of being conscious give us different experiences, different perceptions, and different perspectives on what we call reality, which is the other waves that are around us, which we call the objects of this field, in fact.
Cool. Well, so so just to highlight that for a sec, you're explaining, in a sense, this is, to some extent, there's a lot of philosophy here, but there's also a lot of practical wisdom, because what you say is, you mention, the saying on the gate, to the Oracle of Delphi, where, know thyself, and the idea being that, that consciousness is within us, and actually, we all have the ability to tap into these different states of consciousness, and really kind of, experience this very special, I guess, transcendent state, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, again, to use the same analogy, suppose you are on the wave or you are a wave, but your vision allows you only to see that much of the reality. So you see, suppose your vision is limited, you can only see the wave, the one wave in which you are. So you isolate yourself and you see that this is me and this is what I can see. Now, maybe you see other waves, so you look at other objects and you say, I can see more, and I can see more, I can see more. Now, suppose you can actually dive into the ocean, dive into that ocean of consciousness, and experience deeper levels of your own self, and discover that you are actually the ocean, but only appearing as a wave. So what is truly yourself is the ocean. The wave is one aspect of the ocean, but you are deeply and fundamentally the ocean. So know thyself doesn't mean to only know the wave, but to know your essence, your origin, your being, who you truly are, from where you come, by experiencing directly that you are the infinite ocean.
Beautiful, beautiful. And just obviously to make things clear, your book, well, it doesn't mention transcendental meditation on the cover. There is, there is something, there is transcendental meditation in it, but it talks basically about how reality is and what we can access it. But you do talk later in the book a lot about how TM is a technology with which we can, as you say, access and experience this. And in many ways, perhaps, as Maharishi, who started transcendental meditation, and chose you as his successor, as he would say, it's the fastest way, I guess, the jet plane to go up the mountain. There might be other ways, other ways to experience things, but it's a very fast and very relatively simple technique, right, to use.
Exactly. When we say you dive into the ocean, that means you go beyond just the surface experience of the waves, and you start experiencing deeper level of yourself. So going beyond is what transcending means. To go beyond, to transcend, is to go beyond. So you've gone beyond your surface feelings, thoughts, impressions, and all that in a very systematic way. And then you actually find yourself in a way that is very consistent, very repeatable, very easy to do, very natural. There is no forcing, no trying. It's not really sitting and trying to create emptiness or to try to feel yourself. Actually, when we teach transcendental meditation, we often use the phrase, trying is prohibited. So it's really letting go. Like when you dive, you let go, and then gravity takes you deeper. And in this case, the gravity of being is so attractive, so fulfilling, because it's really fullness. It's your own dear, very profound, infinite self. And you discover within yourself that you truly are that ocean, that you truly are a field of being that can be, can exist, can have awareness without having specificity of feelings, of even thoughts, memories, stresses, or any of these things. So that is what transcending all the surface value means. And there is a technique for that, which we call transcendental meditation.
So, well, first, I mean, I should explain, I probably will in the intro to anyone who's listening, the transcendental meditation, it's a very simple technique. that the TM Foundation teaches, where basically everybody gets their own secret mantra, and they repeat it. You're supposed to do this between 15 to 20 minutes twice a day, and studies have shown that not only does it reduce your cortisol levels, you have less stress, you feel better, you're more mindful later in the day. Unlike using mindful-based meditations, this is something that naturally gives you mindfulness, and that it's actually enriched the lives of so many people. I mean, we know there are there's so many advocates of TM out there. Obviously from from Paul McCartney to Seinfeld. I mean, I think there's so even Ray Dalio, I believe, is a big proponent of TM, and many people who have tried it have found it to be just a very simple technique, and the idea again is that you learn how to kind of be with yourself, and as you say, kind of go into this ocean, and it's a very, very simple technique. But what I find interesting, and I have to say, as someone who is new to transcendental meditation, because I learned it earlier in the year before I interviewed David Lynch, which was a real honor, and I really fell in love with TM as a modality, and and I try to do it every day, and it has it's enriched my life. I can certainly say that. But what I will say that's interesting is I've primarily done it on my own, not as much in groups. But I hear that if you actually meditate with other people around at the same time, you have this profound effect. I mean, I know from biology that you need often another nervous system to kind of turn on your mirror neurons, and there's all this stuff that goes on when you're with another person, even a pet, another animal. Like, we can feed off each other's energy fields, you could say, consciousness, or however you want to describe it. But at the end of the day, sometimes being with someone else, you can actually there is something magical there. And my understanding, as you mentioned in the book, is not only will meditating groups have a profound effect on the meditators, but what I found quite fascinating is that there's also this assertion that seems to be backed up by scientific studies that it can actually affect the environment around those people. Do you want to maybe speak about both of those? Sorry, those are two questions. So one is, how does meditation change when you're with another person for the meditator? The other was, obviously in the greater environment.
Yeah, there is, as you started our discussion, you said that we are all connected. And that is because we are all ultimately that one ocean. And if you dive deeper, and in your environment there is also an experience of diving deeper, then together we can encourage or inspire without having to talk about it, but it enhances the depth of the experience. It takes you deeper. Because we are all interconnected, if there is something next to you that is agitated or that is stressed, or an environment which is not very conducive to settling down, then your mind might be kind of drawn out a little bit, or sometimes even slowed down in its dive, although it can dive under any environment. And as you beautifully explained, it's a very simple technique. And people can meditate in the car, not while they are driving, but if they are sitting comfortably and somebody else is driving. People sometimes meditate in the plane, in the train, and even noisy environments are not disturbing. However, we encourage people to be in a quiet environment, not to have the attention drawn outwards. And when there is a group of people that practice together, as one's mind settles down, it entrains, it takes the other minds also to a more quiet state and a more quiet state. So the first part of your question is, yes, indeed, there is this entrainment, that is this connection that really takes us as one is more quiet. And we realize that when even you come to an environment, even let's say with people, there is nobody, but people have been there, they've been maybe experiencing something spiritual. You go to spiritual places, or you go to a quiet place, or you go to a nice place where people have been having good time and good fun and in a nice way. And you feel that kind of energy, that kind of feeling. Whereas if you go to a place where there is stress, where there is strain, where there has been something that is not really great that has happened, you also feel that, even if there are no more people there. But when there are people, it's even more felt and more experienced. And that's why, as you say, many of our meditators or transcendental meditation practitioners, they like to meditate together because it really makes you feel that you go deeper and deeper in an easier and faster way. So meditation in group is really very, very helpful to allow the mind to settle down. Now, there has been 116 scientific studies that have analyzed the effect of group meditation on the environment. And today we have a science called collective neuroscience, where it has been analyzed that even in animals, in bats, for example, in birds, when they fly together or they perform something together, like even bats in a cave, and they are going around and it looks very chaotic, and they put some electrodes on their brains, and they have found that there is coherence between the different brains of the different bats, for example. So when one's brain is oscillating in a certain way, the other bat's brain starts oscillating in the same way at exactly the same time. And so there is that collectivity that is influencing all the others that are around, and they start to get this deep level of change. And we have been studying this between individuals who even practice transcendental meditation as a group, and others that are even at a distance or some distance from the group, to see the coherence between this group and that group. But this is on the phenomenal level of what is happening electrophysiologically and on the neuroscience level. What is most interesting in these 116 scientific studies is that we discovered that when a critical number of people practice this technique together, which means reach that coherence and transcend together, there is a change in society, even in those who don't practice this technique. And what changes that happen are being computed are all very, very positive, and what we can say in the right direction and evolutionary, because they have been shown very systematically that there is decrease in crime, decrease in conflict, decrease even in accidents of the roads, and unexpectedly decreased in hospital admission, decrease in infant mortality, and robberies, and all of that. And this has been done in a controlled way. And many of these studies have been published in peer-reviewed journals, because the journals looked at the statistics and they said, okay, we don't see how it can work, but the statistics are so real that we cannot ignore it. And so they publish it, even if they put a note, that we don't know how it would work, but the statistics is right. And so we publish it. And so why this happens is what really I try to explain in the book, which I give the logic so that the mainstream thinkers, the mainstream scientists and philosophers can have a paradigm based on which they can understand the mechanism of action. And the mechanism of action is very simple. It's that ocean, and then when the waves settle, they all settle together, and they go to the depths of the ocean, and then there is no agitation, there is less strain, less stress, less fear, less anxiety, less fear from the other, as if you are bringing the light, and then the darkness just disappears. And so when the darkness disappears, even the light is here, but all those who are around, they benefit also from that light, the light of life, the light of being, the light of inner true existence through self. And that is making people behave better, think better, be more friendly with each other, and find solutions that are not on the basis of aggression or complications in their lives.
No, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. You mentioned in the book, obviously, how you grew up in Lebanon, and during the civil war in the 80s, there were several experiments of groups trying to meditate, doing TM in Israel and Croatia, and various countries around the area, and each time, as you say, there was a profound effect in terms of like reducing the violence of the civil war, um, and I find that just astounding, really. I think that today more than ever, I think we need more people to practice different modalities, whether it's TM or another technique that can help bring, as you say, some sort of more bring us in sync with the greater consciousness, basically. And I think it's interesting you say that. I think it was something like it was from Maharishi. In order to bring world peace, the idea was you have to have the square root of 1% of the population. And similarly for each country, that same formula applies. Which, and those numbers are not that big, actually. So the idea is that even a small amount of people can have a huge effect. And I think it's amazing. And of course, you're just talking about how animals are as well. The idea of like swarm behavior, but also you mentioned evolution. I should say in the book you talk a lot about evolution as you talk about from a perspective of consciousness being this idea of evolving to greater consciousness. And in many ways, this is kind of how you structure what's good or bad, if I understand that correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely right. We start with a paradigm that is extremely simple, and that is that we have consciousness. And instead of saying, where does consciousness come from? Is it coming from the physical or the material or the complexification? This paradigm presents consciousness as primary and then explains why this infinite, unbounded consciousness actually manifests. And in few words, just to make a long story very, very short, because it needs a little more elaboration.
Sure.
The nature of consciousness is to experience, to be conscious, because that's why we're calling it consciousness, and to experience in all possible ways. And therefore, the emergence of all diversity is just consciousness experiencing from different perspectives. The perspective of a cat, the perspective of a dog, the perspective of a tree, the perspective of a human being. But there is a joy in the expansion of consciousness, because that means you're going back to the true nature of reality, while the experiences in a limited perspective are kind of limiting in one's ability to enjoy or to feel wholeness or fullness. That's why we are all looking for more and more and more happiness, more knowledge, more love, more care, more understanding, more experience. So this is the nature of evolution, because you mentioned evolution, is to always have more and grow more. In fact, I differentiate between being more and having more. And having more is what people assume it's all about.
Yeah, materialistic
but
approaches, right? But that's not the right. That's not the solution.
Exactly. The reality is what we want is to be more. And to be more means to go back to the true reality of discovering who we are, that we are actually more than the most. And that is what allows us to be happier. And the purpose of life is the expansion of happiness through the expansion of consciousness. And we can expand our consciousness through experiencing objects or owning objects or like that. That's no harm. But the true expansion of consciousness happens within ourselves, because this is where we dive and discover who we truly are. And so good and bad, because you mentioned them also, it's mentioned in the book, they are in the direction of whatever brings you higher consciousness is good, whatever brings you lower consciousness is not as good. So for example, if you don't like your neighbor, or you have some feeling of hatred or something, you say this is not good. I mean, you might not like somebody, it might be good for you for a while. That's not the idea. The idea is that whatever brings greater consciousness, which means the ability to see also the other as myself, is more and more in the direction of good. Whatever brings isolation and separation is in the direction of not so good. And why is that? It's because you're diminishing yourself. You think yourself only as this limited individual, whereas you truly are the ocean, and the ocean has all the waves. So when you embrace all the waves, that means you are growing in your awareness. You see, yes, I am all that also. And that is part of who I am truly. And that is what makes us grow in higher states of consciousness. That's what is in the direction of more good and more good and more good. So somebody who kills, for example, is somebody who's breaking that connection and, having really a big break. And so that is not good. And the one who loves, the one who cares, who has compassion, who has embracing others, we say this is good. And it's good not just because you're doing something to the other, which is also, of course, very good, but it's good for you because you are growing in your awareness. You are embracing the other as part of yourself. And that's why, the golden rule, don't do unto others what you don't want to be done unto you, or do unto others what you like to be done unto you, which means see the other as yourself. And that is available in all belief systems and all spirituality. And now with this paradigm, we have a logic, an understanding of what it means and why it is as it is.
Fantastic. Beautifully said. And yeah, it's interesting because you do talk a little bit about as you said, different modes, different levels. You even talk about self-defense. You talk about free will. All these really complicated subjects. We're going to get to even more later, artificial intelligence. But before we get there, it's interesting. You mentioned how evil is a distorted awareness in a way, because you have to be aware to have some sort of evil. You say, and you also say that that without free will there could be no evil. That's part of the what you get with free will, but which is also very interesting. And but back to consciousness, there were two different parts I remember that I wrote down that really resonated. One was you talk a lot about attention, and you say whatever we focus our attention on grows stronger. And then you also say every moment of consciousness opens a door to possibilities, influencing our development, happiness, and usefulness to others. We can choose which possibilities we pay attention to. And so maybe, do you want to expound a bit about what attention is, obviously in general and how we live our lives, and also in transcendental meditation?
Yeah, the paradigm that I present about consciousness as a field, and the reason why this field manifests, requires actually to have freedom. So freedom is a necessity. It's not just something that is happening out of chance or something like that. It's actually part of the necessity for life to exist and to manifest. And I explained this. That's quite requires some steps of explanation. But in answer to your question, I'm starting with this because freedom is certainly something that is needed for the expression of life. And in freedom, we can make decisions that take us in one direction or the other, because that's what freedom means. And if there are a set of decisions and our attention falls on one of them, and that's the one that we are nurturing, then that's the path that we're going to take. And so attention is important. Whatever you put your attention on makes you grow. And the growth and evolution and development in this paradigm, as explained in the book, is happening through these moments of experience. So you experience something, you change. You experience another thing, you also change. Some changes are minimal and some changes are substantial. You know, you experience a big experience of beautiful something, even music or some grand revelation, or looking at the landscape and you see some beauty, you see some nature, something. It leaves something on you that is more permanent than, of course, eating a piece of chocolate, but also that can have a permanent effect. But it gets reinforced and it changes you. So we are changed and transformed based on our moments of experience. And these moments of experience is the coming together of we as a subject with an object, whatever that is, and a certain process that connects us or links us to that object. And so the way we evolve is by adding up all the different moments of experience, one on top of the other, on top of the other, and that can broaden our awareness, which helps us to grow. That's what we mean growing and evolving. Or that can actually delay us a little bit, or that can happen and keep us, going round and round without either regressing or delaying or growing and advancing. So it is important what we put our attention on. If you put attention on divisions, you put your attention on difficulties, you put attention on separation, on how others are so different than you, this grows in your awareness, this grows in your life. And you start seeing more and more differences, more and more complications, more and more separations. But if you start seeing, somebody comes to you and they might have different ideas, but you might find something in their thought that is good for you, that you can agree with. And if you put your attention on that and strengthen that, that helps you to grow in that direction. Now, this doesn't mean mood making, it doesn't mean you don't see good and bad, you don't discriminate. Of course, you have to make decisions. You have to say, this is right, this is wrong, and I put my attention on what is good. So that is really important in considering how we grow and how we evolve and where we put our attention. Now, that is why, and one of the reasons, transcending is very important, because transcending means simply in a natural way putting one's attention on this deep level of the ocean rather than on the surface levels. And so that is why it's important morning and evening to dive back into the self, which means direct our attention, instead of directing it out through the senses to all these things, which is sometimes fine and necessary and helpful and nourishing. But the most nourishing value is to actually go back into the self and experience that field of consciousness, which is unbounded, which is infinite, which is our true inner self. As we've said before, you mentioned know thyself, and that is by knowing who you truly are, you come out with greater unity, greater appreciation, and all the good things that happen physiologically and mentally, better health, less stress, better behavior, greater creativity, greater clarity, greater coherence. And all of these are not just some nice philosophical words or inspirational words. They have been analyzed and studied scientifically by hundreds of scientific research studies in very, very different, very prominent institutions around the world.
Amazing. Well, also it's interesting. You talk about attention, and I can't help but also think of. I heard someone once say that uh, you should never use negative affirmations. So if you say "I am not something," you're still bringing in that something, because whatever you put your attention on, as you say, that's what's going to come in a way. That's what you're going to grow, right? So avoid avoid thinking about what you're not trying to bring in, right? Is that would you agree with that?
Exactly, exactly. I just came to my mind an example that people ask me because my background as a medical doctor was to be dealing with disease. So people would say, well, does a doctor who puts their attention on disease is influenced by that? And how is it that people should have such vocations where they deal with things that are damaging, cancer, this,
Hmm.
that are painful? And my experience and my feeling is that doctors don't put their attention on disease. They actually put their attention on health. They put their attention on cure. So problems exist, but when the doctor sees a patient, what is the doctor's idea? How am I going to help them? How am I going to cure them? How am I going to bring something healthy and remove, whatever is unhealthy? And so, this is where we have to see the difference between what is your deep feeling and how you are projecting it, and your attention. When we learn as doctors, as students, we're always challenged by thinking about health, thinking about improving the patient, thinking about what medicine is needed, what thing I need to do. So you're always thinking of the cure, of the healing, of the positive aspect.
Absolutely, that's very profound.